Welcome to Green is Good, raising awareness of each individual's impact on the environment and helping to create a more beautiful and sustainable world. Now, here's John Shigarian, Chairman and CEO of Electronic Recyclers International, and Mike Brady.
Hey, welcome back to Green is Good, and hey, I'm so glad you're here today to be with us on our show. Mike and I have a special guest in house today. We have a special guest in house. We got Mandingo Kane in the house today.
Glad to be in the house today.
You know, it's just Mandingo. We're so glad you're here today. We have a special guest who's going to be calling in a little bit, and today is Mike, we always talk about it, and Mike, you've got it down, and you talk about it better than anybody. The people, the planet, and the profits. Which make up the whole sustainability movement.
Well, thank you, John. But I learned that from you.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was so easy to remember the 3 Ps.
And today, this is going to be really a people, planet, profit show. And we're going to be talking about something that is very near and dear to all of our listeners and also all of us here in the studio. Mike, you and I always, when we do our show, right next to us, we always have our...
Oh, one of these, a little cell phone?
We got our cell phones in the studio. So our listeners, and I'm sure our listeners, while they're listening to our show right now, their cell phone is pretty close by to them, either in their pocket, their purse, maybe on their desk sitting next to them. And this is going to be about cell phone recycling today. Mandingo, you have your cell phone with you?
I don't actually. I left it in the car.
Well, you know what? I think usually I tell most of our colleagues to leave the cell phones behind when we go do something special. So you're actually you're doing it right. But
you're
Mike,
way ahead of the curve there, Mandingo. How do we ever? They're so ubiquitous. You're right, John. How did we ever get along without cell phones? I know we did. There used to be these things that are now museum pieces called payphones.
That's right.
Now, I mean, even little bitty kids everybody's got a cell phone.
Yeah, it's just, I'm going to give you an amazing statistic, Mike, but just when you walk through an airport or you walk through any public space, look at all the old pay telephones that you and I grew up with.
Right.
The quarters and whatever, the dimes actually.
Mm-hmm.
And no one's using them anymore.
Uh-uh.
It's all gone away. That whole industry has transformed, and we all live basically on our cell phone. In fact, when people even ask me my home phone number, I typically don't even remember it.
Sure.
I mean, this is everyone who needs to reach you and me. If I need to reach you, Mike, during the week, I never call you on the weekend on your home phone. I call you on your cell phone.
No, you got both numbers, but it's there. It shows up. And I was just reading something, and you've got a better head for numbers and statistics than I do, John.
Yeah.
And Mandingo, you may have heard this as well. But recently, I came across the number of people that no longer have landlines. What we traditionally thought of as our home phones is something like 23 to 26% of people just have a cell phone. That is what they have to communicate.
Well, here's a statistic that I think is really going to open your eyes. I was at a conference recently, and I was with a cell phone executive who was with us, and she gave me a little statistic. It took 20 years to sell the first billion cell phones. It then took 3 years to sell the next billion.
Man.
And now we sell 1 billion cell phones a year around the world.
1 billion a year, and the first billion took 20 years to get to that number.
How do you like that? So this is so the beauty and the wonder and the absolute great part of technology is that the cell phone revolution has really in many ways kept us all connected and made us closer in many ways. But the dirty little secret is these things have lots of hazardous waste in them, and they're fully recyclable, and most of them are not being recycled at this point appropriately.
Well, what's really amazing, too, guys, is how many people have the same cell phone for more than a year or two. It's like you go in and, okay, it's time to go re-up with your cell phone carrier, or you're changing carriers, and you sign that to your commitment. Well, hey, you qualify for a free cell phone, or, since you're a new customer, or you're such a great customer giving us repeat business, we're going to give you a tremendous price break on the latest and greatest for only, $20, $30 or $100 with a mail-in rebate or whatever. So it's every couple of years at least. you're swapping out your cell phones. Where do those old cell phones go?
And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We have such a wonderful and amazing guest. We have Tom Pace with us. Why don't we get Tom in here and get the show underway, because our listeners are just going to love his story.
All right. Now, we're going to call Tom, but we're going to call him on a landline.
On a landline.
Okay.
Yeah. Welcome back to Green is Good. We're here today with our special guest, Tom Pace, and I'm gonna do a little setup here, Tom, before I ask you to jump in here. Tom is just not only an amazing entrepreneur, but truly an inspiring human being. Tom started his company, Pace Butler, which is one of the largest cell phone recycling companies in the United States, back in 1987, basically on a shoestring. And he has overcome many, many things in his life. And I want him to tell the story to his listeners, but he's made Pace Butler one of the greatest cell phone recycling companies. And he's also just written a book called The Mentor, The Kid and the CEO. And I've read his book. And Tom, I am so thankful for you being here today, live from Oklahoma, and welcome to Green is Good.
Thank you very much, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you know, Tom, let's start from the beginning. Let's talk about you starting Pace Butler and how you started it, and where you came from, your past before that, and where you've taken Pace Butler today.
Okay, in 1987, I was working for a gentleman named Larry Rutledge, and he called me into his office, and I knew that I was going to get the promotion. I was up for promotion to the manager, and he fired me.
Oh, man.
And I was shocked. I thought, what do you mean firing me? You're making a mistake. He said, I might be making a mistake, but you need to go. I was polite. I left his property right away. 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, he called and said, look, I made a mistake. Will you come back?
You got to love that.
And, you know, I just had moved into the computer business in 87. I hadn't made any money at all when he called me back, and I said, you know, can you give me 2 more weeks? And if 2 more weeks this doesn't work out, I'll come back to work for you. And I go by there, and I see him. He's still in business. I go by and thank him so much for firing me. If he wouldn't have fired me, I would have never started Pace Butler.
So in other words, there's hope in this crazy economy. There's hope for our listeners that have been laid off to restart their lives and change their direction. There's hope for everybody out there listening to your story today.
Absolutely. You know, I don't think that there's necessarily a money problem, but there are idea problems. We got to have the right ideas. If we have those ideas and we take action and we stay committed, we can make things happen.
Well, tell us a little bit about Pace Butler. You started in 87, and now we're 22 years later, and we were just talking, in our our introduction to you, we were talking about the cell phone revolution, and now about approximately 1 billion cell phones are sold now around the world every year. How has that affected Pace Butler, and where have you grown it to, and what are your dreams with it from here on out?
John, because of a kid I was mentoring, Domingo.
Yep.
We were in the computer business in 2001, 2000, and mostly 2002. And this kid kept saying, you ought to buy used cell phones. And I said, there's no money in used cell phones. He said, you ought to, and he worked on me for about 7 or 8 months convincing me to buy used cell phones. And we started buying used cell phones. We converted from doing computers to just cell phones in 2002 because of him, and we don't buy any computers anymore. The only thing we buy are cell phones. And we buy between 70,000 and 100,000 cell phones a month.
Unbelievable. But okay, well, let's step back for a second. You buy that many, but really, truly, Tom, how many are being thrown away or sitting around people's homes or offices that are not being recycled appropriately? What is the real market? Like, how big are you in comparison to your competitors, and how big is the market in the United States and beyond?
We are Pace Butler Corporation, one of the largest buyers of used cell phones. Okay. But there are literally millions and millions of phones sitting in people's drawers, in their office, in their glove boxes, in their cars, at their house, in their garage. I mean, there are used cell phones everywhere. And we try and work with fundraisers, churches, and schools, and directly on our website, we try to buy phones. We try to buy phones and help the people turn those old phones into cash.
instead of letting them go to the trash, which then they can harm the environment because they do have hazardous material in them.
Absolutely. And the batteries are horrible for the environment. The phones themselves are bad for the environment. We take phones that are working. We pay for the phones that are working. And the phones that are not working, we definitely recycle in an appropriate manner.
And also, our listeners should be also aware that the privacy issue has gotten huge. Basically, it's your life on your cell phone, all your private information. And if that gets into the wrong people's hands, that could be very bad for the person who misappropriately got rid of their cell phone. Is that not correct, Tom?
It is. And if you've got important information on your cell phone, it is very simple for you to delete that information before sending it off. And I recommend you do that. Go to your owner's manual, get online, find out how to delete that information. And a lot of the information today is saved on the SIM card. And when you donate or you sell your cell phone, remove the SIM card. Don't leave the SIM card in it.
Got it.
Because you want that data to go onto your next phone.
So, is this all on your website? Does it explain how to do this? If our listeners want to learn how to appropriately clean their cell phone or recycle it, can they go to pacebutler.com and learn all this?
No, they can go to our competitor's site, though. They can go to Recellular's website,
okay,
and they can do it, or they can go to the manufacturer. We don't have that information because the models change so fast. If they go to the manufacturer, that's the best place.
Okay. But they could go to Pace Butler's website and learn how they could send you their cell phone and get cash for that and make sure that it's being handled appropriately and not going into our environmental stream.
Absolutely. And we pay anywhere from $0, some phones have no value, all the way up to $50 per phone. We post our price list right on our website. No games. This is what we're going to pay for the phones.
That's an amazing tool for our listeners, huh, Mike?
So I think so. And Tom, so you post the prices. Could you look up, for example, by model, what phone that you're going to recycle or sell to Pace Butler? Can you look it up that way?
Absolutely. The prices of all the phones we buy are posted on our website. You can print the sheet and you can look at it. What happens is, like schools or churches that do a cell phone drive, they might collect hundreds and hundreds of phones. They don't have to search each model. They don't have to do any sorting. They throw them in a box and send them to us with our prepaid label. We do the auditing, and we send them a check. But they can see, and when we do an audit, when we send them back the check, it shows all the different models, and it shows what we paid for each model.
Wow.
So you're doing 70 to 100,000 phones a month. How big can your business grow, Tom? What's your dream when you go to bed at night and you put your head on the pillow? How big, given the cell phone revolution is just growing every day, how big can you grow your business, and how many phones do you think you'll be handling a year from now or 2 years from now? What's your thoughts?
I think we'll easily be handling between 100 and 150,000 phones, and I know that's per month, and I know that's a real wide variation.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we're doing the job right. We pay, when people send us their phones, we send a check out within 4 days of receiving the phones.
Wow.
So we want to make sure we're able to give great customer service. And we also provide collection boxes. We provide prepaid shipping labels. We provide signs for them to put in their yard. And we also provide a way for them to, the right kind of information on how to put on a cell phone drive. We send them a kit. And we also send them a copy of Mentor, the Kid and the CEO.
Hey, we're going to be talking about that in just a second. Tom, I just want to say your cell phone, recycling business is so great for the environment and so great for our listeners out there. I thank you for sharing that. And we're going to come back and talk about Mentor, the Kid and the CEO, your amazing book, which I just read last weekend. We're going to have you back in just a second.
If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Hey, welcome back to Green is Good. We're here in studio with Mike Brady and our special guest in studio, Mandingo Kane, and we've got Tom Pace on the phone today for our listeners. And Tom, you just really explained to our listeners so well how to recycle their phones, how they could go to pacebutler.com and get cash back for their phones. But Tom, there's a greater mission here. Like, we talk about sustainability all the time, which means planet, people, and profits. I want you to share now your mission and what you're doing with Pace Butler and what you're doing with your amazing book, which I read last week, and you were so kind to send me a copy autographed, The Mentor, The Kid and the CEO. Your book just is so inspiring, and I know is going to change my life for all the right reasons. I want you to share your story and your book with our listeners, because I know everyone who reads your book or goes on your website, mentorhope.com, they're going to be inspired, and their life is going to be changed for the better.
John, several years ago, on my dream list, I wrote, I want to write a book. Now, when I was 26, I read at a fourth grade level. I'm a lousy speller. Thank goodness I've got people around me that know how to spell, and got great grammar. I don't have all those talents. I read a book by the guy that started Kinko's Copiers. It's called Copy This. I had the goal to write the book. When I read his book, I realized I didn't have to write my book on my own. I needed to ask for help. And I think that's a key to success, is we got to ask other people for help. We got to be clear. And we started writing the book. I had that on my dream list for 6 years before we really started hammering out the book, and it took us an additional 9 months to make it happen. I wrote the book to make a difference, but it's based on actual events that have happened in my life. You know, there's a lot of professional speakers out there that can give a great talk, or they can tell you about a lot of theory. This is based on my life. I live it. This is what I do. This is what I'm about. I want to make a positive difference in other people's lives. And I can't do it just in a speech, so I wrote a book that can hang around. And I wrote this book for people that don't like to read.
Well,
people that like to read. But if you pick it up, it's hard to put it down, because the way it just grabs you.
Tell us the story of the book and your story with Domingo, and then we're going to give our listeners just a little taste of some of the tips from the book. But first, I want you to really tell them the story. Get them hooked like you got me hooked last week when we spoke on the phone.
Domingo came into my life when he was about 16 or 17 years old. We had been running. Another friend of mine introduced me to Domingo. We'd been running for about 35 minutes in the Oklahoma summer heat. And I turned to Domingo and I said, "How long have you been running?" And he said, "About 30 or 35 minutes." I was amazed how this kid had not run before, how he was running with us. He had a desire to do something with his life. And he knew from other people that he ought to hang around me, and we became great friends. And Domingo has helped me so much. And in the book, there's a time when I wanted to give up in 2002, when I wanted to commit suicide. And if it wasn't for Domingo, I wouldn't be alive today. It is so important for us to mentor other people. And we think we're doing a great deal by helping someone else, but a lot of times it turns around and helps us when we don't even expect it. Yep. So, I wanted to write a simple book. I wanted to write a book that made a difference, and that's what I think Mentor, the Kid and the CEO does. And it gives hope to people that are hopeless, but it also helps people that have already been successful to see how they can use that success to help someone else.
Domingo, though, was also a person that in many ways society typically would have given up on. Where did he come from before he came into your life?
Domingo, before he came into my life, had moved around a lot. He came from Mexico. He lived in Chicago. He actually was at a homeless shelter.
But what was his last place before you met him?
That's a good question.
No, but didn't he come out of prison, jail?
No. Now, here's the deal, John. In the book, what I did was I wrote actual experiences of people.
Okay.
And I did not meet Domingo in the jail, but every Monday night, I go to Oklahoma County Jail.
That's right. That's where I got the whole jail.
And so what I did was, in the book, the kid is not only Domingo, but he's other people that I've known, and so we've wrapped a lot of experiences from different people into the kid.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
But Domingo's the main character of the kid. No question about it.
So tell us, where is Domingo today, and how did he re-inspire you to turn your thoughts of suicide around into a major recycling company that is now one of the top cell phone recycling companies in America?
When you get depressed, you don't want to take action. You don't want to move. And the most important activity you can do when you're depressed is exercise, some kind of exercise, whether it's walking or running or swimming. You need some kind of aerobic exercise. And when I was so depressed I couldn't get out of bed, Domingo was coming over to my house either in the morning or the afternoon, and he would say, let's go run. And I'm an avid runner, but I was so depressed I didn't want to run. And he would come and he would wait at the house, and he would bring a book. If you have a book with you never have to wait. And so he would bring a book, and he would read, and he would wait, and he'd ring the doorbell. And he'd ask me to go run. I'd say no, and 10 or 15 minutes later, he'd ring it again. He was very persistent to get me to get out and run. And when I started running, 5 or 10 minutes into the run, I started feeling better. And sometimes we had what we called the really depressed run, which was only 20 minutes long, and we had the normal run was a little over 30 minutes. And so he was persistent with me, and then he would talk about the books that he was reading. I mean, here I'm trying to mentor this guy, but he's mentoring me, and he's telling me about books that he's reading and things that are going on in his life, and it inspired me.
Hey, so on your I really want our listeners to go to your amazing website, mentorhope.com, and there's a 7-part test that you put on there that people, if they follow this routine, it can really help them turn their lives around. You want to share that, the seven things that you have, just as a little taste for our listeners of really, in these crazy economic times where there's a lot of people right now out of work or feeling the same thoughts that you had back in 2002, how can they change their life and just really jolt themselves and get back on track? And you want to talk about those top 7 things?
John, what I want to talk about is how important it is to go to somebody that's been there and knows how it feels. The 7 things will help you, and you can go to the website and have time to look at that. But reach out. If you are locked up, if you are paralyzed because of fear, or you're so frustrated with life because where you're at, look around your social network and think of somebody that has possibly been there and go ask for help. That's called humility. Humility says we can't do it on our own. We need help. And just ask, because people want to help other people. We're in this country together. We're in this city together. We're in this state together. We want to help each other.
That's right.
And people that still have jobs understand what it's like not to have a job. I just got an email a few minutes ago about a mother that's raising 4 kids by herself, and she's got some needs, and the whole community around her are going to work to get those needs taken care of because she asked.
Well, do you mind if I just tick off some of these things? Because these are this is such practical advice. You know, your routine, which you share with a lot of people that you mentor, your routine is just so simple, but so inspiring. Do you mind if I share that? Wake up at 5 a.m. You wake up every day at 5 a.m.
That's my goal. Now, sometimes I sleep in to 5:15.
Okay. Well, that's every day you read. You have one book that you and this is just another part of your amazing story. There's one you read a book every day, which I know you read a chapter of The Purpose-Driven Life. You told me a number last week, which just blew me away. How many? Your mission is so big, Tom. How many of these books do you give out of The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren? How many do you give out on a monthly basis?
Over 10,000.
Holy smoke!
Mike, wow. Is this an amazing human being we have on this? Tom, you are so inspirational.
Here's something that's more important. I've read the book 47 times.
Wow!
And I continue to read the book, and I go into the jails throughout the United States, mostly in Oklahoma City, and I pass the book out. I pray with the people. I answer questions, but it makes me a better person. If I'm going to lead somebody, I need to be the best person I can be.
So 10,000, just think about, guys, Mike, Mandingo, how many lives?
That's a lot of lives, Tom. That's great to know that you're reaching out to other people all over, and you're helping so many other communities just by giving out that book. And,
any of our listeners can do the same thing. Any of the people that are hearing this, you can buy Purpose-Driven Life books or another book that's been important in your life, and you can give it to someone else. And by giving a book to someone else, it's a life-changing experience. Whether it's The The Purpose-Driven Life, or whether it's Mentor, the Kid and the CEO, or if it's one of Hal Urban's books, or Zig Ziglar's books, or Jim Rohn's books. There's so much information out there that we can help people to have better lives through reading.
Yeah, that's you're so right. And then I'm going to give a couple of the other tips here. Then I'm going to take you into something else here. Then Tom says he journals every day. He reads a chapter in Proverbs. He does either sit-ups or push-ups 200. He prays and he showers and gets ready for his day. That's 7 practical tips that everyone out there that's listening to our show can use, that Tom has used and mentored people with, and that could be so great to just jumpstart your life with. Just jumpstart your life.
Here's something else, John. Since you just shared that, and that's on the website, I got to live up to that. I got to continue to do that. You know, mornings when I wake up and I think, I don't want to do this. It's not just about me.
I know.
But it's about the people that I'm influencing. Now, am I going to walk the talk, or am I just going to talk the talk? And sometimes I want to just talk the talk, but the reality is I got to walk the talk. I got to do it. That's what I want to be authentic. I'm not authentic all the time. None of us are. We all fall short.
Well, that's why I'm going to ask you. We got a couple minutes left, and you reminded me of one of my favorite poems I've ever read. It's a short one by Muhammad Ali, and it just goes like this: me, we. And Tom, that's what you're about. Me and we. And I love that. Hey, Tom, take us through your top 5 mentoring tips. We got 2 minutes left, and I want you to inspire other mentors and other mentees what mentoring's all about with your top 5 tips, which is on mentorhope.com, your amazing website. Go on. You want to take us out with those top 5 tips?
The very first thing is you got to establish what you want out of your mentor, or what you want to do to help someone if you're going to mentor somebody.
Right.
And then you got to make sure you got the right chemistry between the two people. Meet with the person if you can. If it's going to be a face-to-face mentoring situation, meet with them and see if the chemistry's right. You know, sometimes you meet people and you just know immediately you get along.
Right.
And then another thing I think is important is you have a structured time that you meet.
Right.
And I meet with my mentor every Tuesday at 6 a.m. Central Time.
That's great.
And we sit down and we talk, and we drink coffee. Kind of gets us a little bit more awake. On that day, I have to get up at 4 o'clock to make sure I'm there on time. And it's always important to be on time.
We're out of time today, Tom, but we're going to have you back to Green is Good. Hey, listen, for all our listeners out there who want to recycle their cell phone and do it the right way, go to PaceButler.com. That's Tom's amazing company. And for those of you who want to be inspired like I was, go to mentorhope.com. It will change your life. It's changed my life. Thank you for listening, and Green is Good.